Okay. Ashok, you want to kick this off?
Yeah. So this is our second follow-up benchmarking sync. Last time we took an AI to evaluate some of the tools that we have been looking at and what makes sense to proceed forward with. Uh, I have a table which compares the different solutions out there. Let me share the screen. So yeah, FMPerf and the GK's latency profile generator are the two tools initially added here. Uh, I also added GenAI perf and the VLLM benchmark uh, based on request. To make the screen a little bigger. Um, yeah, so these are the set of features that these benchmarks have. And this one kind of compares which one supports what and what is currently missing. Um, I can quickly go over this and then we can talk about um, what are the missing ones, how they can be supported, and yeah, what is the time frame we are looking at, and how flexible each of these tools should be to adopt. Um, so I would say like the main requirement from the initial discussion that we had is to have something that is benchmarking as code. For example, someone should be able to take the core layer benchmarking code as a library. It should be in Python, and they should be able to use it for different cases if they need to. It shouldn't be just a tool that you can run. It can be code that can be extended based on the use case that you have. In that case, I think all the tools kind of support this. They're all written in Python. I think FMPerf supports this today, where you can just use the specific portions as a library. Other ones you might need to um, make some changes to get there. Um, and the second key requirement is the model server support. We want it to be kind of model server agnostic and support different model servers. Um, I would say both FMPerf and the latency profile generator support this today. Um, We have some more model server support in the latency profile generator. The other two in GenAI Perf and VLLM benchmarks were initially returned mainly as the benchmarking tool for that particular model server, right? GenAI Perf to benchmark Triton and VLLM to benchmark VLLM. But they do have support for example, GenAI Perf supports NIM endpoints as well. And VLLM has a way to benchmark TGI too. But the concern with these ones coming from the model servers is that how easy would it be to add support for uh, other model servers, right? And also, if we are to adopt that into like a separate project, we need consensus from the people who currently own it. And yeah, so those will be some issues if we pursue this route with GenAI Perf or PLLM benchmark. But if someone just wants to benchmark them with the supported model servers, it should be simple to run it. Um, Benchmarking time is something we want to control. This is especially important for auto scaling. For example, how long the benchmark itself runs. Um, that way, like you can run it for a few minutes. If you want, you can run it under increased load for a few more minutes to see how auto scaling works and stuff. I think FMPerf and latency profile generator support that today, whereas GenAI Perf and VLLM benchmark are more like send a set of request rate for a certain number of prompts, and then you're done. Um, the other one is the support to vary the load in terms of request rate, right? This is an important one. So we can kind of say, okay, at this load, at this RPS, this is what we observed, and how changing that RPS affects the actual latency and throughput. I think with the FMPerf, I didn't see support for this one. I think this will be one key feature to support. if we are to directly start with FMPerf and use it. So one thing I would like to learn is like what it would take to add support for a request rate.
Yeah. So Harshak, let me explain a little bit. So the logic behind FMPerf is so we got two parts, right? So one is orchestration part, the other is the I think load generation part. And then actually in the load generation part, offline when I'm using FMPerf, what I do is I recompile read benchmarking, for example, from VLM, just run it as a load gen container together to be called. So that's definitely some extension we always want to add, but haven't got the chance to merge upstream yet. But offline, I have been doing that practice. So the idea is make different types of load generator pluggable.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I have a
So
comment on, yeah, not this one. Yeah, let's finish this one and I have another comment.
okay, and this one is good to know that we can change the load gen or add another load gen to support this. Yeah, your comment.
And so for multiple model server support, it might be good to add an additional role just to mention like how hard it is to add a particular runtime to your tool. Because I think that's gonna be very important, right? If it's not easily extensible and if it's so heavily controlled by a vendor, that's gonna be a concern to me.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I will fill this out. I would say currently, yeah, most difficult would be GenAI Perf, since it's mainly NVIDIA. VLLM would be then a second hardest to add, considering that's not their goal, even
Yeah.
though it is more open source. But yeah, that's a good point. I will call that out here as well. Okay, so moving on to the next point, multi-user support. This is like how many users can concurrently hit the endpoint. I think this is how FMPerf does concurrency and load gen today. In latency profile generation, we don't support this. Yeah, but if it is possible, could be added. Might need some changes though. GenAI Perf does support this today, where you can control the users or concurrency, and VLLM doesn't. One thing we found with the multi-user scenarios, I think Locust and other typical web load generators kind of work like this. The main concern we have with this for LLM workloads is each user has to send a request and wait until the request completes before they can send another one. So it is okay to continuously keep sending requests, but it is hard to control like exactly what RPS you would see with this. It is highly variable based on how long it takes for individual requests to complete. Yeah, that's something we noticed from our experiments before. Containerization is another one. I think both FMPerf and Lanes Profile Generator can be containerized today and deployed. VLLM and GenAI Perf are meant to be run as a tool from your local machine. So they don't support that. Running inside a Kubernetes cluster is another requirement as well. FMPerf supports this today from what I can see. You can containerize and run the load gen from inside. But I did notice that it's not seamless yet. You need to create a prompt file in advance on the host machine and then have it alongside the model weights for tokenization, which happens on the server side. This is something we would need to simplify where someone can just run it as a Kubernetes container or pod, and then it just hits the endpoint that we want. So yeah, that is something, if that is done, it would make it easier to run against any Kubernetes cluster against any model server endpoint. Can run the latency profile generated today in this manner. Other two, not yet. Tokenization, I think all four support. I noticed FMPerf kind of relies on server-side tokenization so as to not take it as a dependency. But this does restrict us from the things that we can do on the benchmarking client itself to see the exact set of tokens that are generated and come up with the different stats that we want to measure based on it. I might have to look into FMPerf a little bit more, but I think client-side tokenization is something that would make it easier for certain other use cases as well. So maybe that is something we can look into. And data set, I think all of them support some data sets that are out there and popular. These are the ones you can see from what they support today. I think this is also the easier part to expand. Yeah, we can just write a new plugin for a new data set and that should work. Streaming support to measure time to first token and like kind of send like gRPC or HTTP requests. I think FMPerf, then GenAI-perf and VLLM support today. Latency profile generator does not, but this is something that is in the backlog to add. Pulling GPU metrics while the benchmark is running to see how well it was able to utilize the GPU, what was the power utilization. I think FMPerf does that by default today. Latency profile generator doesn't do it today. It does get other metrics though. GenAI-perf does it today. VLLM benchmark doesn't do that today yet. Pulling metrics from the model server. This is basically metrics that are exposed by the model server, like what was the KV cache utilization, what was the queue size, and other things which could offer some insights. This one FMPerf doesn't do that by default today, but since FMPerf uses Prometheus to pull in like the GPU metrics, I think this should be something that can be added. Latency profile generator does that today, other two doesn't. Multi-model benchmarking for LoRa support. This was something that was recently tested with the latency profile generator and it works. I think for FMPerf from Jen's comment here, this is something that can be added. That's good to know. And GenAI-perf supports this today out of box, where you can specify a list of models or LoRa adapters there. VLLM default benchmark doesn't. And the last one is the deploying the inference server part itself, right? We need a cluster and we need the model server to be running before we can use the benchmark. Today, FMPerf supports it via code, where you can basically create a VLLM deployment. In latency profile generation, this is kind of separated out from the benchmark itself. So you would have to use Terraform to set those up first and then run the benchmark to keep those separate. GenAI-perf and VLLM kind of rely on you to either run your model server locally or somewhere and then start using it. These are the set of features I looked into. If there are other things, please let me know. That would be good to cover here.
Yeah, the last one here, I think deploy inference server or cluster, like does that have to be within the benchmarking tool itself, or can we extract out that part to be reused? Like, for example, the Terraform code.
Yuan, what I'm thinking is we should support both, right? So in some cases, we just want to deploy the a load gen for an existing deployed servers and systems. But for sometimes, especially if we benchmark across different types of servers, then and we are using some elastic resources. We don't want to waste the resource for a long time, right? So that will need to deploy the servers and destroy the servers.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually have use cases for both.
Okay. So
Yeah.
one way is more dynamic, right? The other way is more static.
Static,
Yeah.
like you already have the whole system running in the environment and you just want to test it.
Okay.
So but I think both are feasible and we can easily configure, for example, if the code is a library, configure the library to allow different options. And another thing is like, especially for those CI/CD testing, right? So if you want to integrate it with CI/CD, and because resources provision on demand, and then we still need the option of deploying servers.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that too. I think the main thing is for someone who just wants to use the benchmark, it should be easy to use it, and you wouldn't have to go through the tool to deploy the resources yourself for it to be useful. So as long as it's easy to do both those cases independently, I think that should be good. And yeah, having some separation between those two.
And another question is, one of the model servers supported by the latency profile generator is Jetstream. Is that mainly used by Google?
Yeah, so this is an open source model server that runs only on TPUs though.
Okay.
So TPU support is being added to VLLM, which now supports it, and PGI also supports TPUs. So Jetstream is the tool from Google that is open source that you can use. We wanted to benchmark, so we added that to the list. But I would say based on how popular it is, we can, it's not a requirement that we immediately add it. But I think having it be model server agnostic, where we can point to any model server, where you can extend it and say, okay, this is the API endpoint, and this is how the request needs to be for that model server. And having the tool be extensible to do that, I think uh, would be a requirement. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so profile generator seems to have like a good coverage of runtimes. But FM perf, like, correct me if I'm wrong, Chen. I think it's also open to be extended. I don't know how easy it is, though. Maybe you can comment.
Yeah, so basically, FFperf is very simple. It just use the Python Kubernetes APIs to create deployment. So extensible ability is really depending on how many templates of server templates, YAML, and you support. And then if you think it's not flexible enough, you can use some other tools. It's also welcome. So we are very open here, and then anything make the code more concise, cleaner, or simpler. We would like to make the change. It's just right now FMPerf is mainly voluntary based, so we don't have a lot of bandwidth on that. But if we donate it to the open source community, we are very open.
Okay.
And like I said, like when I'm using FMPerf, when I want to test the arrival rate part, well, I want to test the LoRa part, I will just plug in my YAML. So replace the some part of the code to replace the YAML. But this process definitely can be included in FMPerf.
Okay.
Makes sense. I think, yeah, for the LoRa part, the YAML would be one aspect of it. But for the benchmarking driver to hit the different LoRa endpoints would be something that we would need from the benchmarking side of it, right? Where you can hit the different LoRa adapters while benchmarking with like the same kind of load.
Exactly. Yes. Right now, I'm kind of reusing, for example, VLM. VLM has a LoRa benchmarking script, and then sometimes we change that script a little bit to have different patterns for different LoRa's. But I mean, so I really think it's a separate concern of interest, right? So the orchestrator. So the benchmarking tool is more like the orchestration of deploying servers deploying load generators and then automate the benchmarking process. And then others is the tool benchmarking tool itself should be able to support various types of load generators for different purpose. Like for very arrival rate, for different concurrency, for different LoRa support.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Any comments from others in the call? Okay, no strong opinion, I guess.
Cool. Yeah, and there are other features that would be useful for your case. I think feel free to add them here. I think one of the things that was brought up last time was to measure accuracy of results itself. We said that is not the preliminary goal to start with, but we could add that.
Oh, I see that Song has a comment in the doc.
Yeah. The case of benchmarking, a set of servers via Kubernetes service, for example, can scrape metrics from all backend servers and aggregate them. Okay, I feel like this is another instance gateway requirement, where a gateway is actually fronting multiple instances of the model server. So they are asking if we can, in addition to like fetching metrics from a specific model server, can be aggregated. I think this should be also doable. Yeah, but we need to see what would be the right way to add this. Yeah, I can respond here. Yeah, I think solving some of the instance gateway related things through the benchmarking tool also helps, because that's like one of the first use cases we have to like benchmark multiple model servers behind gateway or load balancer that we want to do. Cool. So I'd say that would be one. Typical auto scaling setup would be another one.
Okay. Yeah, maybe what we can do next is to mark which one of these features are hard requirement for the initial POC, right?
Yeah. Makes sense. I can list that out. I think mostly this should be
Maybe
the
highlight the ones that are hard requirement and see if we can address any gaps.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So yeah, I would say the RPA support would be one hard requirement to address before we can use it. for some other cases that we have listed out. And the next one would probably be running the benchmark from inside the Kubernetes cluster more seamless. Yeah, I think with those two, would be the main hard requirements, other than the benchmark as a core part, which is satisfied in most cases, and the model source support too.
Makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, for next steps, do you have any thoughts on what we can do?
We start adding code, or how should we start the real work of development of contributions?
Yeah, so I'm trying to see like if one of these we can just build on top of one of these tools instead of starting everything from scratch. So if we think like either FM perf or the latency profile generator can meet most of the requirement, like even if like one of them is missing like two things, but can be added in the future, we should go ahead and build on top of that. Yeah, it depends on like which, if there's any hard gaps that we need to fill, and whether we have people to work on those.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. So from my side, I would say if we are to use the latency profile generator part, we could essentially start as like similar to serving catalog or something. We could spin off a new OSIS working group serving project, and then kind of import the initial one, and then start to add other things on top of that. So the FM perf, it looks like if we take the route, the plan will be to convert the existing project into an OSIS one. Would that be the approach we would take, or can we also take out portions of FM perf and start it as a separate thing? What would you prefer if we go that route?
Sorry, could you repeat the last two sentences? I just didn't catch.
So with FM perf, if we are to use that as the base, and we want to build on some portions of it, would you be okay with taking out some portions into a separate project that we can then build on and extend? Or would you like to turn FMPerf in its current form into a CNCF project and then add anything there? If we take that route, do you have a preference on? Because one offers more flexibility in terms of adding things.
Yeah, we were hesitant about CNCF because CNCF donation usually takes longer time. Yeah, and then for taking part of FM perf directly into, for example, WG serving group, I think we are open to it. And then last time I discussed this with the founder of the project, and then he's open to it. I just need to get a second confirm. And if I confirm, I will let you and Yuan know, and then feel free to just take majority or part of it to the project as the base, and we can start building upon that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. And in terms of contribution, how would you see? Like, do you have folks from your side who can?
As I mentioned, we are volunteer-based. I need to double-check with all other contributors on how frequently they can be involved, and then how much time they would like to volunteer. And then we can also discuss like the maintenance, logistics all together. And then definitely they are very familiar. So all of us are very familiar with FM perf code. And then so if there's some issues going on, it should be easy for us to catch up, but because we are volunteer based, so there is no guarantees, like if some other higher priorities things happen, then we may not respond very timely.
Yeah, I'm also trying to figure out like additional resource to work on this from our performance team. Hopefully we'll have some folks to help out.
Yeah, makes sense. So it looks like starting something under a workgroup serving would be a good starting point, and then we can pull specific portions from FMPerf and maybe the latency profile generator to have
Yeah,
like an initial working version.
Yeah, Chen, can you double check with the creator of the project just to make sure like this is the proper way to go? Since we are borrowing the code, we want to make sure we gave the right credit and acknowledge the original developers too. So
Definitely, I will share with you the name, their volunteering time, and then their acknowledgement.
Sounds good.
sounds good. Yeah, we can. Yeah, once we get the confirmation, we can work on like a project proposal together. And present to the working group to get the official sponsorship.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, let us know. And yeah, I will check with other folks on the latency profile generator too. But I think on that side, we are at a point where we have the tool and the basic functionality is working. So if we have to contribute some of that into workgroup serving project, it would be good where we can then consolidate that and add any new features directly there, and we could use it as opposed to adding it to the current tool we have. So yeah, I'll circle back on that as well.
All right, sounds good. Anything else for today? All right, that's it for today then. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank
Have a
you.
good day.